we're splitting it into to talk about number and shape, space and measure. So I'll just run through as quickly as I can, because I know time's marching on. The shape, space and measure in maths. We're starting off with measuring. Year 3 are using metres and centimetres and suggesting suitable units to measure and estimate length. So we're saying, what would you use to measure the carpet, the length of the carpet? Would you do it in centimetres or metres? So just getting them familiar with that. And using the rulers to draw and measure to the nearest half centimetre themselves, and recording mixed units, so it measures 2 metres, 35 centimetres, and know the relationship between metres and centimetres. Choosing and using appropriate number operation and calculation methods to solve word problems and then explain their methods. Identifying right angles in 2D shapes. I know Year 4 parents will be sick of hearing me saying this, but the right angles, one of the children said last year, if that's a right angle, is that a left angle? Oh, not quite. Good idea, it should be really. Classify and describe 3D and 2D shapes, referring to reflective symmetry at the sides, edges and angles. We'll be looking at fractions, a half, third, quarter, fifth and tenth of a whole, and looking at the inverse of addition. Subtraction is the inverse of addition, and they can see how they can use inverse to check their answers. We'll be doing quite a lot of that. It's a really useful strategy. Time is an ongoing topic that goes on forever and ever, because it's a really difficult one. So for Year 3 we'll be concentrating on the half past, well, o'clock obviously, half past, quarter past and quarter to. Then later on we'll be looking at 5-minute intervals. But it's something that can be ongoing at home. You know, just have a look at the clock, see what time it is. First of all, just looking at the analogue clock to begin with. Year 4, measuring using kilometres, metres, centimetres and millimetres, converting 1,000 centimetres to metres and vice versa. Again, them suggesting as well suitable units to measure length. Recording metres and centimetres using decimals and mixed units. Knowing fractions of kilometres, metres in centimetres or millimetres. So half a kilometre is, you know, how many metres. Calculate perimeter of rectangles and simple shapes. And in shape, they'll be doing 3D and 2D as well, classifying and recognising the different triangles. I'm going to say it, equilateral, isosceles, and recognising the position on grids. Then for time, they'll be going a little bit further, reading to 1 minute on analogue and a 12-hour digital. So getting them used to looking at the digital clock as well. And again, they'll be solving word problems involving time. Data handling, they'll be interpreting tally charts. They'll be collecting information as well, and presenting on tally charts, frequency tables, and pictograms where the symbol represents 2 or 5 or 10 units. And another forever and ever, times tables. We'll be going on and on. We'll be doing times tables every week. And the children are getting into a routine of setting themselves a challenge, because they're all at different levels. Some of them love times tables and will just eat them for breakfast, and others are thinking, you know, well, what's the point of doing that, you know. So they're all at different levels, so that they're having a personal challenge each week to see which one they want to aim for next, until they get them all, basically. And the aim is to get them really, really fast, so they're tripping off the tongue, so we can say, you know, what are 5 5s and what are 6 3s, so you can, you know, do a real wham-bam quick quiz to get them really thinking. So that's what we're aiming for all of this term, probably all year, I think.
Okay, so I'll move on to number. Year 3 will be looking at reading and writing numbers to at least 100, sorry, not 100, 1,000. So they'll be converting a figure into words and vice versa. I'll be looking at partitioning numbers into multiples of 100, so we'll be looking at 432, I understand that that's 4 hundreds, 3 tens and 2 units. They'll be looking at estimation and not just a random guess, having an educated estimate, and discussing their methods of how they come to their estimate. So, for example, there's, say, 10 beads on the top layer and there's 10 layers, so that's how I've come to my estimation, and looking at the differences between their estimate and the actual number of objects that we're counting. So they'll be looking at up to 100 objects. We'll be doing lots of work on our mental calculation skills and how to solve problems. For example, 3-step addition problems we'll be looking at. We'll be looking at how to do quickest methods as well, so that they can do their calculations mentally and quickly. So we'll be looking at bridging through a multiple of 10 to do mental addition and subtraction. They'll be learning to recognise all coins and notes, so then they'll be able to use the pound and pence notation in their figures and recordings. They will be then moving on to many problems and putting them into real life situations. So they've learnt the skill and now they're going to be applying it into their day-to-day life. So they will also be looking at checking their work as well. As Anne said, that'll be a key skill, that they'll become reflective learners, and that's how they can progress on. Year 4 will be looking at reading and writing numbers again, but to 10,000 at least. Converting the figure into the words and vice versa. They will also be partitioning numbers, but they'll be looking at the thousands, hundreds, tens and units. They'll be following the estimation as well, but they'll be estimating a larger quantity of numbers, and they'll be finding a proportional fraction of an object or an amount of beads, for example. Year 4 will be consolidating their addition and subtraction, and looking at the relationship between addition and subtraction and how we can reverse to check our answers. Looking at the order of the numbers, so we know that addition can be done in any order, but subtraction can't, and then we'll be looking into minus numbers also. They will be learning to count on in steps of 1, 100 and 1,000. So, for example, starting with 467, adding 60, but doing in chunks of 10 because it's quicker. Again, mental calculation skills of speeding them up. They'll be looking at near doubles and how they can adjust to find a result quickly. So, for example, I know that the answer is double. I've got the equation 24 plus 25. Well, I know the double is 24. So I just add 1, so they're adjusting their calculations. They'll be focusing on their pencil and paper methods, so recording how they've come to an answer in multiplication and division also. Then for the second half of the term, year 3 will be counting on and back in tens and hundreds. Again, explaining their methods orally, so we can see their thinking process and that they're coming to the answer in a logical form. They'll be looking at odd and even numbers to at least 100. Year 3 will be looking at multiplying by 10 and 100. So for multiplying by 10, they'd shift their digits 1 step to the left, and with 100, 2 steps to the left. We're looking at multiplication in respect of addition. Again, it can be done in any order, checking the results and reversing it to check that they've come to the right result. Year 3, they will go back again to looking at their money problems and real life problems, so they're still applying their skills. They're going back and checking that they can still apply their skills. So an example of a money problem would be which 5 coins make 74p, and see how quick they can come up with the answer. Anne said that we'll be looking at the fractions and introducing the terms numerator and denominator. Looking at pizza and cake is always a good way to start that. If they have a meaningful learning experience, it helps them. So I'm sure they'll enjoy looking at that. Year 4, in the second half of the term, will be looking at recognising and extending a number sequence in constant steps of constant size. So we could have an adding 2 sequence, so we have 3, 5, 7, 9. They have to recognise what the pattern is and then extend it beyond. It can also be a minus number, at it, say 87, 83, 79, what's the sequence, how can I extend it, find the missing number, which will then extend to looking at negative numbers in the sequence and identifying that they are negative and positive numbers, not minus and plus numbers. They'll be looking at odd and even numbers again, but to 1,000, and looking at the properties and what will happen if we add an even and an even, what will the outcome be, will it be another even or an odd? Again, they'll be solving number problems, applying their skills all the time, checking their workings, recording their workings. They will be looking at multiplication and division, and that's my sequence of papers. And again, just explaining and recording their methods, finding the quickest way to work it out, and so for example, in the general multiplication, if they have a 34 times 6, they can break that down into the easier numbers, so the 5 and 10 multiples, so we could change that into 30 times 6, and find the answer to that, and then the 4 times 6, and add our results together. Just simpler steps of them being able to use their mathematical skills. Again, they will also be looking at fraction and recording fractions and consolidating their written addition and subtraction numbers up to 1,000.
Okay. Moving on to